Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my channel, Index Trader Andrew. I hope you guys are having a great morning, good afternoon, or an amazing evening, wherever you are in the world and whatever time it is for you. Today, I wanted to showcase how I use TradingView, my charting platform, so that, I kind of always have an answer for anybody ever asking me what I use or how I use it. So for now, this will be the video that I will direct them to, as I have a specific friend who is new to the platform and is curious on how to set it up. So I figured I would take the time and just set it up. So here we are, new tab in TradingView here. I don't know how to get to the actual home screen. This is the closest I can kind of get off the top of my head. So I don't use anything down here. You have your screeners, calendar, news flow, heat maps, options, markets, and community tabs. These are all amazing resources. I use screeners every once in a while if I'm looking just at stocks to just kind of get some data. But for my actual day trading and everything, I am only using the super charts. So we are going to create a new layout just right there, and we will get this lovely chart. And it carried over a couple of my settings, but we will kind of go over everything here and customizing it kind of completely. The first thing I want to bring your attention to is my watch list. This is basically all that I use. This is my primary watch list. I have the dollar index, micro E-mini NASDAQ futures, whatever contract month we are in. Right now we are in the December 2025 contract. And then also I have the regular NASDAQ contract for the same delivery month, just so I can see if there are any differences kind of between the two. But I am gonna be staying on the micro because that is what I actually use on the daily. How you add anything, you can add a symbol right here with this add button. You can add whatever you want to your stock watch list here. I primarily am just in futures, and I am in the NASDAQ. And so for the first delivery contract, March of 2026, that is right here. If I wanted to start watching that, I can click this plus button, add it to my watch list, and there it is. I personally like to keep it clean, and I keep it basically as small as possible, right about there. I want to see just enough, and I always keep it minimized because I never really change off of MNQ, which you can also see right up here in the top left hand corner as well, because I have some settings turned off so I can't actually see it on the chart. Right here in the top right up here, it is saying unnamed. That is your chart template, so we can rename this. We're going to rename ours to YouTube tutorial because this one is going to get deleted after I am done. We are going to save that. And these are all the settings really for your entire chart. This is the kind of where you start. I personally always have the autosave on. I don't really share it with anybody. I just rename them. As you can see, I only actually have one layout, and then this one that we are working on now. And then this, what looks like a checkbox right next to the name, now that it's named, you can see that it has saved up here at the top. This little checkbox looking thing is actually whatever layout you are going to use. So this is just one chart here. That is why it is a big box. If you wanted to split your view, you might be asking why you do this. Over here, you can have the daily chart. And on this one, you can have something like the 1 minute chart. So you can really see the difference. Typically, do something 15-minute, 1 minute, whatever you want to do. You can have up to 16 in the layout. I never go higher than 4, and that is my daily, my 15, my 5-minute, and then my 1 minute. This is how I would ever have it set up if I had all 4 being used. But typically I stay on 2, and I have my daily and my 1 minute. And then also I typically have it like this. Most of my real estate is here on the 1 minute chart. And then I just have a peek kind of at the daily over here on the left. The big thing I like though is keeping the symbol the same. So if you change the symbol on either one, it'll change it for both, which I always find very convenient. Keeping the cross, I always have the interval turned off because I do like having different intervals. Typically, you would never have both of these turned on at the same time. If you were looking at multiple symbols, but you wanted them all on like the 1 minute chart, that's where you'd have interval on and symbol off. I like crosshair because if we go back, I'm gonna have to go over here. If we go back to my little plus crosshair that I always find annoying, you can see over here on this chart, wherever I'm moving it on one chart, it is moving on the other. That is what happens when you sync the crosshair. But we are going to turn that back off with stuff I will be showing later. Time is another great one to turn on. I typically go back and forth, turning that on and off. What that does is, let's say over here we wanted to click on Wednesday's candle on the daily chart. If you watch this chart on the 1 minute chart, it will actually jump to Wednesday. This is Tuesday. And then right here is the 6 o'clock for the start of the Wednesday open, which is Wednesday candle where we clicked. And so the time, you can basically just jump around to whatever. There is a limit on how far back you can go to jump. And let's see if we can find that one. Yeah, so right here, this little crown looking icon means there is no more data being loaded. And you can upgrade your plan to get more, but that is not necessary for kind of what we need, and totally not necessary to have. But I like that off. Date range is very similar, except it affects the zoom. So if you zoom out, it doesn't really work on these intervals. If you zoom out though on the 1 minute chart, you'll start seeing it zooming out for the same date range there on the daily. These time frames are a little bit too extreme of differences to really show that in great detail, but I never have that active. I always have that off. And that is kind of all I do up here in this corner. If you ever see that save button, it means you have unsaved changes, and so you can just click it and it'll automatically save the entire layout. Now, moving across the top here over to the indicators. This volume indicator is actually default on every time you create a new template. The first thing I do, typically even before I change any of the settings in the top right, is I actually delete that indicator, and I will delete it for both charts. I do not use any volume indicators. These are my favorites that I've used in the past. It's stuff like this watermark is not looking great over here. But if we click over on the 1 minute, it'll be a little bit easier. It is made by AGFX Trades. If we click it, it puts a watermark at the top and the bottom. You can customize it as you want on the settings here. You can turn it on and off, or you can have other settings and delete, which is what I use. I don't use any indicators. These are all the old ones I've used, and basically the only thing they do is make it so I had to draw less lines on my chart, because they would automatically generate lines for me. Like this would, I ICT New York midnight open, and that's going to say dividers, would basically put a vertical line every night at midnight or whatever time you specified. But ultimately, I just found it easier to do it myself because I didn't want it showing all the time, and I really like having it clean with no indicators whatsoever. And then moving over one more, we have candles here. These are the types of candles that show up here on your chart. I will say if you use anything that is not time and price based, you are doing yourself a great disservice, in my opinion. Even these volume candles right here, I very much dislike them. I always stay on the candles, but if you look at how they are drawn on here, it is actually the exact same as the hollow candles, but every once in a while I do like changing the candle colors, which we will get into. And so that's why I just leave it on candles to save me basically a step if I ever want to change the colors. I know some people also really like the bars. These are the exact same as the candles, but my eyes get a little bit too blurred here. So you got your open on the left, your low, your candle body, your high, and then your close on the right is how you read these candles, which is basically the same. If you look at that one, you have your open, low, high, close. At the top, your bar is your open, your low, your high, your close, just laid out slightly differently. These are easiest on my eyes though, so I leave them on that. And then these are time frames. So if I remove all my favorites real quick, which I meant to do before starting, this is how it typically looks up here in the top left. You just see whatever time frame you are currently on. So the 1 minute, these are all defaults that come with. That's the 15 minute. You can see this changed up here to 15 minutes. You can do an hourly, whatever you want to do here. And then how you favorite them is you click this little star icon, and then you can see, look, now the daily and the hourly are showing. I am on the hourly here, and now I'm on the daily because it is highlighted on this chart. And actually, just for ease of this video, we are actually going to move it to just one chart. So typically what I like to do is I like to have my daily, my 15 minute, my 5 minute, and my 1 minute, just all favorited. These are the 4 that I use the most. Every once in a while I'll bring in a 1 hour and or a 4 hour, but I do not use them enough to keep them favorited. So I will kind of manually use them kind of when I see fit, I guess is the best way to say it. And I just want to zoom this chart over to what today's price action was. And then with these time frames, we also have a function on the complete opposite end in the bottom right-hand corner. This is your TradingView clock, where you can also click on it and change your time zone to whatever time zone you are in. So currently I am based in Phoenix. It is 9:17 p.m. here on Monday, October 27th, 2025. But I always have it defaulted to New York, and that is, I think, always the right answer, to have it on New York time, because that is how the markets book. And then right next to your time, you also have electronic trading hours versus regular trading hours. So since we're in electronic, we can see everything before the open, and this will be much easier actually on a 5-minute chart. And I want to zoom out and zoom over here. So right here, actually, we'll do this. So right here, you can see we closed here. How do I want to do this? We'll do that. That is our close at 25,510.25. When we open, that's Friday, by the way, sorry, October 24th, the very last tick. And then this very first tick is Sunday, October 26th, 2025 at 6 p.m. That is our open up here at 25,698.50. And you can see we are in electronic trading hours. Now, if I change that to regular trading hours, you can see those lines do not really line up with the chart. Like even this one, oh, hello, where am I? Even this one down here is not on the correct spot. So if I drop another line here, and I will change it to a darker blue, you can see this one's actually at 25,506.50. And this one way up here now is actually at 25,815.75. Regular trading hours is from 9:30 a.m. open. So the first tick at 9:30 instead of the first tick at 6 p.m. And then the last tick at 4:14 p.m. that closing price instead of the 4:59 p.m. closing price. So being able to kind of toggle through both of these, as you can see, these lines are now anchored to different points. So you can see the teal lines are your electronic trading hours close on Friday and then open on Sunday, whereas the dark blue here is your regular trading hours close on Friday, and then way over here is your open on Monday morning, which was this morning. So being able to kind of toggle through both of those and keeping them square in your brain is pretty important. I personally really just like electronic trading hours. Typically at the open, I will check regular trading hours to see what is going on. And then more times than not, I actually switch basically right back to electronic trading hours when I have my bearings. Now, going over to the drawing tools, I did not get this set up properly. I'm going to unfavorite everything by unchecking all of these stars here. There are quite a few, and I still didn't get them all. So, I mean, that kind of takes away from what I was trying to show. Basically, all your drawing tools that you would ever need are right here on the left-hand side. I believe you can switch them to the right, but you have everything from your pointer to icons and kind of everything in between. Now, what you can do is you can favorite them to put them into a toolbar, which is this guy right here that can be moved around your page. And down here in the very bottom left-hand corner is how you can toggle that on and off. I always have mine toggled on because I find it very useful. And then typically what I put in there is I put my fib retracement tool, I put my horizontal ray, my vertical line, and my trend line. And then I also put the arrow because typically your cursor is across and it'll always default to that, but I prefer just the standard arrow. And then I also like having my rectangle tool. And then I also typically have my text tool and then my price note. And then for extra, I throw in a long position and a short position, which basically means this is a hypothetical trade here. The green, I have it color coded. The green is your profit. The black is going to be your risk for a trade. And these tools just make it easier to visualize when certain levels get hit. You also can double click or click into the options here. This is kind of the quick toolbar to edit them, but you can click in the settings and kind of change everything that you want here. Your profit level, this will change where the top of the green is. So if I click off of it, you will see this top line move down to 200. This is 200 ticks, which is the same as 50 handles. And then right now, this stop, basically the stop loss is at 510 ticks. But, you know, you can also put that down to 200 ticks. And 200 ticks, like I said, is the same as 50 handles. There are 4 ticks in every handle. The tick is the smallest increment that a futures contract can move. And for the NASDAQ and S&P, it is 0.25 handles. Yes, now my other tool I will show the settings for is the fib. I use this tool for its levels. So if I double click into this, these are kind of all my levels here. I always extend it to the right because typically my price scale is actually on the right. And for some reason, TradingView wanted to default it over to the left, but we will fix that here in a little bit. The 0.5, 0.1, and then the 0.25 and 0.75. These 5 levels are basically what I use every time. And they are also basically in order of importance. Sometimes I won't need the 0.75 to 0.25, so I will just have these top 3, which is my 1. Basically, it's the top, the bottom, and the exact middle of whatever I'm measuring. And then sometimes even I don't even want the top or bottom. I just want the exact middle. To keep my charts kind of clean, I'll take off the top and bottom lines. But these are the defaults, and then I have a bunch of extras that do different things here. So like my optimal trade entry buttons are right here, which I personally like taking off all of that. And so my optimal trade entry right there, my 62 to 79% retracement levels. We also have my extension levels. So if I'm looking for how far past an objective something can reach. So like for this one, if I'm looking at Friday's close to Sunday's open here, and I want to see symmetrical price swing, which is this entire gap basically duplicated on top. So if you look here, if I just have the 0, 1, and -1, this is basically saying the same thing as the 0 being the exact middle point, but it is an extension because the 0 point of the gap, or the midpoint of the gap, is inside of the gap, whereas this -1 is extending past what I'm measuring. So these are all my fib settings. I will leave it up here if you want to copy them. They are used to get specific price levels, and that is kind of all they are from me. It is not magic numbers or anything. It is so I can see the price on the price scale and over here for exact prices that I am using or aiming for. Now, if you are wanting to trade, we do have a trading panel down here in the bottom left. You have a bunch of different brokers. I personally use the AMP Global brokerage, but I am not affiliated, do not have any links or any affiliation with them. I am not an introducing broker. That is personally who I use. You can use whoever you want to use. I highly advise you do your own research on what platform you want to do your trading with, honestly. They clearly offer quite a lot. There's even more. These are just kind of the main ones that they highlight. The big one I want to show, though, is I think the best, which is this pay-per-view paper trading fake money account. So if we just click on that here, we can then click on connect, and you will see it will start thinking, and then we will see that we are in my paper trading account. You can see your settings, you can export your data, which you would export your trades by clicking on export data and changing this to history. That is how you can get a CSV of all of your trading. It only looks back a couple days. So what I get in the habit of doing is I pull this data after every single trade so that nothing is missed. And then you would just click export and it will download to wherever your download folder is. Now, this is an account I already have used. So I will actually create a new account here. You can name your account. So this is the YouTube tutorial. You can have whatever balance you want, whatever currency you want. You can pick your leverage and even change your commission per contract for when you trade. So you can simulate, oh, I don't want to click that. You can click this little help tool to kind of pull up the frequently asked questions on TradingView. If you do have any questions, most of these sections have that. But if you want to simulate something closer to trading with a real broker, you might want to use commissions. You might not. Real brokers use them, so there is definitely an advantage when looking at this. I personally leave them off because my objective is to be profitable enough where it doesn't really matter what the commission is. I'm gonna basically beat out whatever a commission can be. And then you click create, and then you see here, I now have an account balance, equity, realized and unrealized, P&L. My margin will change if I'm in a position. Right now, obviously, since I just created it, I'm not in a position, so there is nothing being used here. I have funds, everything. This is all kind of the same as a regular broker. You should be seeing this usually as well. I can't really speak on other brokers though, because I have not used them. But if you're in a position, you can kind of see it here on the main page. You also have all of your orders. You can look at whatever ones are currently active. So if I actually wanted to put we're gonna skip ahead here real quick and show stuff. Right there it is. And it's not there, okay. Why is it not here? It might be lagging a bit, so we will come back to that. But basically, if you have any working orders, it will show up here: inactive, filled, canceled, rejected, all different types of orders. You will also have the history. This is what you're exporting, by the way. When we go to export our data, we want to export this tab. And then you can see your account history, which will show basically a little bit more summarized. Brokers this is really an important tab when you have a broker that you are using, I have found. And then this trading journal is, I feel like, kind of pointless, but it's basically just another log of everything you're doing on every other tab. And so real quick, I'm gonna try to figure out why it is not showing anything. And it will not tell me. Okay. So actually, that is a perfect segue. We're going to move this out of the way here. We are now going to get into the technical settings of this. So we're going to start at the top here. This is how I have my chart colored. I'm going to zoom way in here. You will see a lot of the same settings that I kind of covered around the page. This is another way to kind of get to them. But basically, if I'm ever changing my candles, like I'll change it to blue or something, and this is how I'll have my chart. So this is exactly why I don't like the hollow bodies. I don't typically change the borders in the wick, but I'm just showing you, you can pick whatever colors you want. We're not going to pick yellow though, because I just can't see that on here. But if you really wanted to, you can have red, green, and purple for your down close candles. It's pretty hard to see that green border around the red. I bet though if I switched it to yellow, yeah, there you go. Now you can see the green a little bit. I personally am a very plain chart trader. So I have it all black, and then I pick blue or I pick white. And I prefer the white because it is a lot easier to see and it is a lot less distracting. This is also how you can change your session, which we saw in the bottom right. You can have a background for electronic trading hours. This is another way to visually see it. As you can see here, we had the Friday close over here in the bottom left. And this is the electronic trading hours close. So everything from the regular trading hour close to the electronic trading hours close is in electronic trading hours. And then everything overnight is electronic trading hours until we reopen at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, I just like having that off because I'm typically always in electronic trading hours and I know my times. And so I don't need that divider to show me when and where electronic trading hours is. And then once again, always the New York time zone, currently UTC-4. Here in about a week or two, it is actually going to change, I believe, to -5. I always forget which way it goes, but if you just look for New York and pick whatever one says New York, you have the right time zone. Moving on to the status line, typically all of this is actually checked when you create your chart. And this status line is this entire top line over here. As you can see, it says MNQZ 2025, and it gives you the description, which is the micro E-mini NASDAQ 100 index futures, the December 2025 contract. It is the 5-minute chart, and it is the CME delivery. And then this little green dot is if the market is open or closed. You can click on it to see how much longer the market is open. This is useful to see if you ever think there's a holiday coming up or if you couldn't remember if there's a holiday. You can have this and you can see how many hours until the market closes. This logo is that little symbol just to the left. But basically, I don't like having any of that on here. I know my chart is always going to be on the NASDAQ E-mini micro futures. So I turn off the logo, the title, and I know when the market is open and closed. And so I turn that off as well. These chart values are super important to leave on actually. This is your open, high, low, and close values here. So as you see, as I'm moving across different candles, those numbers are changing depending on what candle we are looking at. And then actually the percentage here at the end is what this bar change value is. It shows your percentage change. I also personally like that off as well because I only care about the open, high, low, and close. You have your volume per candle. Again, though, I don't use volume. And then whatever your last day. So this is when the last day closed, how much different we are currently from the previous day. But as you can see, I leave mine very plain. I only have the chart values because, again, I only care about the open, high, low, and close. Now for the scales and lines, I always show my currency in unit. I leave that as default. I don't really I leave that unchecked, the ratio, but I typically always have that on the right, and it has actually been throwing me off all video that it's been on the left. And then I also prefer no overlapping labels And the best way to show that is to put some drawings on here. As you can see, if I turn that off, we are going to do that, and then we are going to do just another line. But I want to make this one, it's going to get rid of my settings, maybe, or not. It used to. I'm actually really excited that that doesn't do that anymore. So if you look here, right now, I mean, these lines are the same thing. So let me move this down with my arrow keys ever so slightly. As you can see, these are overlapping here. I always have no overlap on, and so they will automatically stack on top of one another. And you just got to know that this price goes to this line. And so that is why I wanted to change the colors here for this example, and why I typically use a lot of color when I am marking up my charts. This plus button that they're talking about is this plus button over here on the scale, where you can buy, sell, put an order, draw a line, or add an alert on your chart. And then I always have my countdown to bar close turned on, so I can see how many seconds are left in the minute right where the price is, instead of having to go all the way down and look at the clock. This line here is, you can put a line, and you can see, if I get rid of these other drawings, this dotted line is the current traded price, the last tick, basically. So it'll fluctuate up and down, and basically give you a line all the way over to your price scale. And then you have the value, and then you can also turn on the name here. If you really, like, if you had multiple symbols on the same chart, you can kind of compare and contrast right there. But I only care about the value. I can see where price is, and I can just see the value, and then the countdown to bar close. And as you can see, a new candle just opened. We are on the 5-minute chart up here in the top left. And so we have 4 minutes and 50, 49, 48 seconds till this candle closes. These are other lines you can have on your chart for your previous day close, your high and low, your bid and ask. I will sometimes use the high and low. What this does is it'll, whatever you're looking at on your screen will be the low and the high. So if I zoom in here, you will see this low and high kind of change with whatever relevant price data is on the screen. If I zoom out, you can see this low keeps expanding lower and lower because there's lower and lower prices here on the screen at one time. But I like it clean. And then finally, the time scale down here at the bottom, you can change your date format and your time format. I personally like this one because it has everything: the day of the week, the month, the day, and the year. And then I personally just really like the 12-hour format. Some people do like 24 hours. I will say, as I was starting, it was a little bit easier showing 24-hour format, but I personally am just a much bigger fan of the 12. Moving on into canvas here, mine is a solid white background with no grid lines. You might see grid lines like this on yours. You can change them, you can have everything. Again, I like just the canvas here. If you really wanted to, you can turn something on like, I'm trying to find something that won't kill the screen. Like this, there we go. I wanted to make sure I can still see all the down close candles, because if I clicked black here, all of a sudden you can only see the up close candles and none of the down close. But as you can see, you can change your whole background. There is a dark mode in settings as well, but personally I do not use it. I leave it on light mode, and I also have my chart backgrounds as white. And that is personal preference because I actually print my chart out with a printer every single day, and I don't want to use that much ink. So I leave it white so I'm not using the ink when I print these out. This crosshair is the crosshair that you actually saw that I keep turning off This crosshair, you can change the color here if you want it to be red. I know I've done that before. I've also done the teal, you know, just so you see it. I personally use black if I ever use it, but also more times than not, I'm not even on it. These text and lines are for your price scale. As you can see, I just turned off the opacity on the lines here. And if I turn it all the way back up, you'll see there's lines so you can see the edge of your chart. I personally really like that. And then this text font is for the numbers, your price values and your time values. And then I don't actually know what these are for. Oh, you know what? They're for these buttons down here at the bottom. If you want them, I hate seeing them unless I'm going down there to use them. So I have them both on visible on mouse over so that they only pop up when I go down there. And then these are the margins for the top of your screen, how close price will get to the very top, how close price will get to the very bottom of your screen, and then how close price will get to the right of your screen. Personally, I like 15, 10, and 10. I find the right really doesn't matter with how much I am moving my charts around. 10, if you can see, is plenty. Don't really need any more than that. Now, trading, once again, I kind of showed this off a little bit earlier, but if we bring this over here, the buy and sell buttons are for these buttons right here below your status line if you want to see them. I personally have one-click trading enabled. If you turn that off, it will actually open up this trading tab where you can see and kind of change everything about your order. But I use market orders primarily. As you can see, since I was trying to edit the order, actually, it popped up right here. But we want to close that out. We don't want to enter anything right now. You have your whatever sound you want to make. If you want to play a sound, you don't have to. You can only play a sound if it gets rejected. And then this shows your position in orders. So if you saw, will it work now? Okay, it won't work, but we can get it like this. So since I have this trading tab open, this is going to be a limit order. We'll put it down there. And I believe this isn't going to mess anything up. What I'm going to do real quick though is I am going to change it because I really like seeing these lines, this information on the right, because it is very close to my price scale. And then if I click buy, it really just is not showing my orders. Okay, I don't know why. Maybe it's showing it on this chart. This is my actual chart. Let's see here. No. How strange. Okay. I don't know where the order's going. I mean, luckily we are in a paper trading, and this is also a paper trading account that I am just using for this example, and it is not actually trading. Obviously, if you have an actual account, you want to test all of this before going live with real money in a real trading situation. I'm not too worried about it right now because we are in this fake trading account that I am just using as an example. But yeah, you can show your positions and orders if it works, and it'll put a line. So, I mean, you can kind of see it's basically this line. You can move your stop loss, your take profit, since this is a long order. If we wanted to sell, we can change it. We should just close it all actually and start it again. So if you wanted to sell, your stop loss would go above, take profit go below, and then you can actually, basically these lines aren't grayed out when your order is active. These are bold lines that go all the way across your screen here. You can change it so you can show how much money you're risking and trying to get as your reward. You can also put it as ticks, which these are the brackets, your stop loss and take profit. whereas your actual position is this number right here. So if we change the bracket to ticks, you can see we're risking 77 ticks to make 242. Or you can do a percent, and this is going to be a percentage of your account. I personally do not like that. I leave it as money. And then I also typically have the execution labels off. I'm going to try executing a market order right here just to try to show it off. And it's not letting me. Okay, I wonder why. But typically your execution mark, it is going to be very similar. I'm going to show it here because I already had them drawn from earlier. It'll basically show the arrow on the candle you enter on. And if you click it, this is a drawn arrow, not an execution arrow. But if you click it, it'll show where on the candle you entered or exited your position at. And then the label just makes it so you don't have to hover over it. It'll have the price above it, but it will go over top of candles, and I find it just takes too much space up on the chart. So I have those turned off. And then one more time, I will show this line. If you don't have to extend it, you can just have them over here. But I personally like seeing it all the way across my chart. I like having it on the right here by my price scale. And then I also have it in my screenshots for if I'm ever taking a screenshot of my chart. This video is already a lot longer than I anticipated, but we are just going to go through a couple more sections here. This DOM sucks. I don't like anybody who really uses one. It is fake data, spoofing. I wonder if it will actually let me enter an order here though. I never actually remember how to use this. Is it going to let me work? We want the limit. I know that much. Oh, it flashed and then it went away. So there is something just going on. And I don't want to necessarily restart my stuff right now. But we're going to close that. Oh, look at that. It came back. There it goes. Goodbye. So last thing I wanted to go over really is how I annotate my charts. And for that, we are actually going to go back over to this chart because these are my example executions I took today in this morning's trading. As you can see here, we have the 9:30 open. I will drop a vertical line on there. And then I personally trade until noon, roughly. Typically after this macro is when I'll usually stop, but that is my trading window here. And what I do here, you can see these rectangles here on my chart. They are not supply and demand zones. They are not zones at all. I am looking for very, very specific levels here. This rectangle just looks, I think, a lot better than the other way to do it. So this one right here is anchored right here at the top of the 937 candle and also anchored on the low of the 9:39 a.m. candle because I am capturing that gap, the volume imbalance below it, and the gap over here on this down close candle as well. And I am looking at the high of it, the midpoint, and the low of it. So if we go actually to the new template here and go down to the 1 minute chart, I need to find this morning. Look at that, it's right there. So obvious. What the levels I'm looking at, and this is the reason I use the fib and why I have the fib levels the way I do, is I'm anchoring it to the close right here at 937, to the or to the low of the 9:39 a.m. candle. And these are actually the price levels I am looking for in that area. It is a very specific price level. I am looking for the high, the midpoint, consequent encroachment, the low, and then this is a quadrant level. This is the lower quadrant, and this is the upper quadrant. For something this small, because this is from 25,825.50 to 25,829.75, this is where I typically take off the upper and lower quadrant, and I am actually only looking at these three levels. So if you see this, and then what I did, honestly, with the rectangle is I moved it backwards to highlight this down close candle as well, so I knew that that was a part of it as well. So it's anchored here on that close to that low, but I've also just visibly shown it to this down close. So if I go back and I remove this other rectangle that I had over top of it, and we zoom in a bunch, you can see the close, the low, invisibly, it is shown over here. And if you really wanted to, you can put a midline on your rectangles. And these are the three levels that I'm looking for: the high, the midpoint, and the low. If we go back over here, we got the high, the midpoint, and the low. It is very specific levels, not zones. I want that exact price point. I want the exact high price point. And then if I am entering long, I want to buy, I'm looking to buy at the high. If I want to go short, I'm looking to buy or to sell at the low. So very specific price levels. And complete mastery of this skill is being able to see that midpoint right about there. Look at that right there. Seeing it without drawing it. So you know, this is another gap right here. Nice buy side balance, sell side inefficiency, which I will go into much further detail eventually. But this is the low of it right here at this candle's high. The high of it is this candle's low. So with a rectangle from there to there with a singular up close candle in between. And look at where the midpoint is. And that is useful. Those three levels are the most useful when they are bigger gaps. So a bigger gap like this, where it is a true gap right here. This gap is 200 handles small. There's a lot of room in between this high and this midpoint. So that is where I bring in the quadrant levels to basically further split it up again. And to have more specific price points in between big ranges of price points. But as you can see, the midpoint comes in at 25,604.50. And if you look at it visually, as I remove it, you can still roughly see it right there. And if you really wanted to, you can kind of cheat a little bit, and you can see the price moving with your cursor. And this is where it might be an advantage to have this cursor, where it is the crosshair, and you can line up that crosshair with this price scale on the right-hand side for whatever candle you're looking at. So right there is the midpoint of this gap, roughly. And finally, here for the last bit of the video, none of this technical information, like showing you what a buy side balance, sell side inefficiency is, which is this. That is not something I am trying to take credit for. I learned all of the very technical science that is stock trading from Michael J. Huddleston, otherwise known as the Inner Circle Trader on YouTube, which is at Inner Circle Trader, all one word, otherwise known as ICT. That is who I have been learning under and have looked up to as a mentor for the majority of my trading career now. You know, I used to not be able to say that, but now it is very much true. And this is his channel right here at Inner Circle Trader. Currently, right now, 1.92 million subscribers and 779 videos, some of which are 4.5 hours long, hour and 23, hour 45. So it is a lot of information, and there are a lot of fake channels out there, which is why I emphasize this channel is the correct one, not any other one. There is only one channel with this whole description here, with official links to the Twitter, website, and Telegram. Most of the website and Telegram are basically inactive. Twitter pops off every once in a while with insights and information from Michael. But that is all for today. That is how I set up my charting. I'm going to have to figure out why the orders aren't working. I'm wondering if it's because I'm screen recording. It's just not showing them. And then that is a very brief introduction to what I am doing. And by brief, I mean an hour long. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this insightful and it helped you be able to set up your own charts. This is how I set up mine. As you can see, this one over here is my chart I actually use. This is the chart I was using today, actually, to execute trades. I draw lines to denote certain times of days that I'm looking for. I was looking for the 9:50 a.m. to 10:10 a.m. time window, which is, this line is the same as drawing two vertical lines right there. But I don't like how the vertical lines block my price action. So I just draw a horizontal line below all the price action. If today was a bearish day, typically I actually put the lines above. It makes sense for me, and that's typically how I do it. And as you can see, very little annotations, but then over here on the left, I do also have that daily chart, where you can kind of see all the levels. I was looking for that 25,921.75 level today. Clearly got there at 1:42 p.m. and then just kept rocketing higher all the way up to just above 26,000 here. And now it is currently 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we have given some of that back to likely set up, I think, another rally higher tomorrow. But with how much we did today, I am gonna be lenient on that analysis for tomorrow. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope this was insightful and helpful, and you were able to take something away from it. Until next time.